My name is Mark Platt. I'm the Extension Director for Teller County, Colorado. I am standing in for Mary Simon Lucy, who has a sinus condition where she wasn't able to make it here to the event. So hopefully I will do her honor here by presiding over moderating this event today. So the Global Relations Committee put this panel together. We certainly, from our perspective as extension agents and specialists, enjoy the opportunity to be out in the field, not only in the United States, but in global arenas as well. But we thought it would be interesting to get an administrative perspective on the support or the challenges of the international extension and the benefits of that. So without any further ado, a couple of housekeeping things here. We do have evaluation slips, should be in front of each of you here. If you would fill that out on the very bottom, put your name and tear that off. We'll be doing a drawing. And at the end of this, it's a door prize here for batik from Thailand. So batiks are kind of like tie-dyes, but instead of using rubber bands to tie things off, they use the wax to create the color difference there. So that will be a door prize here at the end. So please do fill out the evaluation and turn in the bottom slip. Just write your name on the bottom of it there, and we'll draw that. Let's see. Any other thing I'm missing here? We are filming, just to let you all know that. So we're going to be putting on guessing on the national website here, I believe. Dan, is that correct?
I think it's going to be a YouTube channel. ESP has a YouTube channel.
ESP or ESPN?
Yeah.
Yeah, ESP has a YouTube channel there, so we're going to be able to watch us outside the event here. So with that, I think I've got all the housekeeping. Oh, one more.
Is this our sign sheet? Or is there going to be a sign sheet there?
I'm not familiar if there was a sign sheet supposed to.
We'll give you one. Okay.
We'll start one.
We'll start it and pass it forward.
All right, thank you. So I would like to introduce, first of all, our guest here, the various administrators, starting with Dr. Lou Swanson, who is my fearless leader from Colorado State University. He is the Vice President for Engagement and the Director for Colorado State University Extension. Dr. Swanson is a rural sociologist. He has spent the majority of his career focused on public policy, associated with the changing structure of U.S. agriculture and rural community studies, with an emphasis on engagement and application of knowledge. And Dr. Swanson also did a stint in the Peace Corps. So he's got, although not directly with Extension, I guess kind of through a roundabout way through Extension, or certainly in conjunction with Extension, and understanding of that international market or international arena. So thank you, Dr. Swanson, for being here today. Next on our panel is Dr. Michael Hort. He is the Vice Provost and Director for Extension at the University of Missouri and Professor in Animal Science. He has worked with the U.S. aid projects in the Caribbean, published on work in Mexico, and is a leading advocate for extension engagement in the University of Missouri partnership with South Africa. So thank you, Dr. Hort, for being here as well. Our next panelist is Dr. Nick T. Place. He was named Dean and Director of University of Florida / IFAS Extension in September of this year. So welcome aboard to that position. Dr. Place was a multi-county extension agent, CED in Pennsylvania, conducting extension educational programs in dairy, livestock, 4-H, youth development, and community development. Sounds like the typical extension agent there. So it's kind of a nice blend to give, obviously having your being in our positions in the past and now where you are from your position as an administrator. We appreciate that. In 1995, he was selected by the USDA to work in Poland as part of the Polish-American Extension project for 6 months on extension education methods and dairy and livestock technologies. So thank you for being here as well, Pat. And finally, last but certainly not least, we've got Dr. Pete Forgot, and he is the Northwest District Director for University of Florida of the IFAS Extension as well. So it sounds like we've got some of the Florida contingency here, as I was led to know as before we started here. Dr. Forgot provides leadership, instruction, and support for the educational program development in the areas of information technologies and internationalizing extension. He has been an active member and served as president for the Association of International Agriculture and Extension Education, and he also chairs the ESP Florida Chapter's International Committee. So thank you, panelists, for again being here. That's kind of our brief introduction, kind of how this is going to play out here. Is that we've got, and we decided as a ESP Global Relations Committee to put forth 4 questions that we were going to ask the panelists, and we're going to give you each approximately 2 minutes to provide an answer to each of the questions. And after the end of the 4 questions, we're going to open it up to the audience here to have interactive questions with the panelists up here if you have specific questions directed toward them. All right. So, Dr. Swanson, we'll start with you. The first question is, tell us about your personal experience of international travel through extension and the benefits or detriments to your career.
Since I still have an extension appointment, it's not I'm the worst person to start out with. But no, I mean,
the lens of,
I mean, seriously, I should have told Mark ahead of time that I was probably the worst person to start with. But for extension in Colorado, I see it as absolutely critical. It's really important that that extension have a global relationship. And right now at CSU, and we're not a large university, we have about 27,000 students, and we have about 380 extension employees in the state, which puts us in about midstream. We're working with several Chinese universities, with the Russian State Agrarian University in Moscow, and Saratov State Agrarian Saratov State University, and the Russian Federation. And these are areas that are very interested in creating extension, but the problem is how do you create extension in the absence of civil society? And civil society, for those of you who don't know, is the crux of extension for 100 years, which is we leverage the society around us. We leverage people and volunteers. We extend and add value of the university. These are not ideas that are implanted or part of either the Chinese university extension structure, but just beginning their university extension experience, or in Russia. And I see a great opportunity for our agents and county agents to find their way to these places, and also for these guys to come over. And does it advance their career? You know, we've moved our evaluation down to the county level, so it'll depend upon the county, their county and their region. But I'm sure Mark will be able to take that kind of experience and create a better understanding for folks who, in these cases, were once considered enemies of the United States, and use extension as a way of bridging some huge cultural gaps.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Pass it on to you here. We'll go right down the line here for answer that question. Let me know if you need me to repeat that question.
No, I can go on, Mark. Thanks a lot. I think what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about where I've worked internationally. Covered most of them, but I'm filling a couple of holes. But tell you a little bit about why and my role, and also talk a little bit about the benefits, detriments, and how that evolved over time. A couple of international experiences that weren't mentioned is when I was at Iowa State prior to Missouri, we were involved in a project in Europe where we were working with Dutch dairy farmers that were interested in coming to the United States in a kind of a total program to try to assimilate those Dutch families into the U.S. The other one is at Missouri, in addition to the South Africa project, we've been involved with Australia and New Zealand, working with pasture-based dairy operations and intensive grazing operations. But, the 3 out of the 4 panelists have Florida connections, and where I started was with the University of Florida as a faculty member, extension and research specialist in poultry science in that Caribbean experience in Montserrat and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And the reason I got involved in that, even though it seemed exciting and interesting, I wanted to be promoted to full professor. And there's a thing on the promotion tenure packet that says national and international recognition. And so that's how I got in it, and that's what I did. But that experience changed. And because now what I'm really interested in is ways to work and advance programs for other faculty so that they can benefit from those experiences. And I think that's what it's really about, is to change the worldview of faculty, to give them skills and practice their skills and learn about the international experience that comes back and helps the domestic program in multiple ways. So the only detriment, because I don't think there are very many, the only detriment that I can think of is resources, both financial and time to do these kinds of things.
Appreciate it. If you would please share that.
All right, thank you, Mark, and good afternoon, and very happy to be here and visit with you this afternoon. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. As Mike mentioned, we were asked to talk about our experiences, some benefits and detriments, and I'm not sure if I can get to all that in 2 minutes, but I'll try my best. I need to tell you how I got involved in international, and it frankly was on a dare. I went to a county extension program and heard somebody talk about the Polish American Extension Project and the kind of work that they were doing over there in the late 80s, early 90s. And as we were leaving, my wife said, "You would never sign up for that." And I said, "Well, I'll show you." So I put my name in, and lo and behold, I ended up being selected to go to Poland and spend 6 months over there working with their extension professionals on extension methodologies, and did a lot of things with animal science production, barn design, and all of those kind of things. And it was one of those things that was totally changed my life, and it changed how I perceived my career and the kind of things I wanted to do as I moved forward. I came back and started my PhD program at Penn State while I was working full-time in the northeast part of the state. And my dissertation topic was the domestic benefits of international involvement of extension. And what we did is, what I did was went back and interviewed the 69 people that were part of that Polish American Extension Project, interviewed Extension Advisory Committee members, stakeholders, and others. And I was just impressed by those that really went at this with a purposeful way, really brought about a lot of benefit to the clientele that they served across the 15 states that were involved in that international project. And it was because of that that kind of opened my eyes to a number of things. And then if there's opportunity, I would like to share with the group, maybe some of the findings that we got from that study. But that's how I ended up getting involved in international kinds of things.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Last but not least, down here, if you could answer that question, appreciate that. Sure.
Like Nick said, it's great to be here this afternoon. Our internationalizing extension project that I've helped and developed actually started at Michigan State University. And I had the fortunate opportunity to have an excellent teacher, Dr. Mary Andrews, led a 20, 40, 30-year program at Michigan State, and I happened to be a participant in one of her workshops that did a great job of exposing me to the benefits of internationalizing extension and what extension can offer. Understanding cultures is the biggest benefit of any kind of international extension program. And after I've was involved in this type of work for a few years, I kind of realized that I grew up in an international area at home, and my grandfather here was from Croatia, and he and I could never speak. We always spoke with a translator, which was my grandmother. And you don't realize those kinds of experiences when you're right in the middle of them. I've had the opportunity to work in about 14 different countries, nothing long-term, like Nick's experience of a few months, but every time I take a group or help a group, you find out what the benefits you have locally are and really appreciate what we do have and how we do extension. And everywhere I go, they always want to do some of the things that we do, and what's the secrets that you have for your successful extension program. And you always share with them the positives. It is kind of difficult to transplant, and we don't really transplant. We talk about ideas and purpose. As far as the biggest benefit, somebody mentioned promotion. I would have never been promoted to full professor without something other than administration. And international extension and information technologies allowed me to do those things, to present papers and to write and to work in different areas. And so the international extension component is very beneficial. Detriment, time, money, those are always the two biggest issues. because it does take time and extra different funds. We'll talk about that later.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Doctor, or if you would like to start this next question, I'm going to appreciate it. The next question that we're posing to the panel is, what do you consider to be the benefits of extension professionals conducting international programs? So some of you have alluded to this a little bit already. If you could be a little more specific, appreciate that.
Well, I'm proud to say that the Missouri chapter of BSP did a survey of over 400 of our faculty and staff. And I think the findings of the preliminary returns, I think, are universal in terms of the benefits. Here they are, the most cited ones. Changed the worldview and the perspective of the U.S. of the individual. Changed their worldview and their perception of their home country. Developed an understanding of other cultures. I think that's already been alluded to. They're more adaptable to change and more patient with people in general as a result of their experiences. They're using the skills learned here in the U.S. to help people in other places. That was the next one. That was personal development. Career impact, they said, incorporating what was learned globally into extension program locally. They said helping them to work with diverse audiences. Encouraging and creating opportunities for global professional development for others in extension. They shared and encouraged others to get involved as a result of their experience, because it's pretty powerful, I think, when people have that experience. So I think, just to reiterate, the transferability of international experience to improving domestic programs is very, very high. And I think that's a real important benefit. And we need to remember when we go to engage and not perform outreach. One of the things that we've learned, particularly in our South Africa experience, is we need to go and realize we're going to learn maybe more than we're going to teach. And that's been our approach, and that's exactly what's happened. So that kind of mindset, I think, is a great benefit for international programming and extension.
Thank you so much. Please.
So, Mark, I think what I'll do in addressing this question is come back and talk about some of the findings that came out of that follow-up study we did with the Polish American Extension Project. A number of those things are very much in line with what Mike has just shared with you as well. A couple things I do want to hone in on. One is we found that the people that came back from that project had a much greater appreciation of our land grant system and of our extension system. And frankly, I think many of us way too often take a lot of that for granted. We have a tremendous historical success with our land grant system and our extension system that a lot of other countries are trying to emulate. Pete talked about that when he was making his comments. I have found both in Maryland and in Florida, there's a lot of people from other countries that want to come and spend time with us to learn about how we do extension work, how we connect with the university, how we connect with various clientele groups that we work with. And y'all, we cannot take that for granted. That's a tremendous benefit we have. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've seen from my international work is it really helps you to step back and get that things in the right perspective and appreciate what we do have here in this particular country. Also, another thing that was mentioned is of reaching out to non-traditional clientele. I think when you do an international project or assignment, it really stretches you as a person, professionally and personally. And once you do that, you don't have the same worldview anymore, nor do you look at working with different types of people in the same type of way. My international work has had a tremendous impact upon me. I have a much more greater appreciation of working with diverse audiences, limited resource audiences, and I think there's a tremendous benefit by getting more of our faculty involved in helping them have more of that global perspective and working with non-traditional types of clientele. And so since my time is up, I'll stop there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to share one of the many training programs that we've done in internationalizing extension. And Nick was involved with me on this project, and it was done with county extension faculty and state extension faculty. But we added two other groups. One group was our CALs, our students from different departments. We also added our partners, our county commissioners. We invited a county commissioner from 5 different counties that were from the same county that the county agent was involved in the training. And their first question is, why are you doing this? And the underlying was that we are your partners, and your funding for about $35 million is very important. And you need to understand how important internationalizing extension is. And so when we list things, and you can find us on our websites, what are the benefits? We list benefits for our faculty, the benefits for extension and IFAS, that's what the IFAS is, Institute of Food and Ag Sciences, and the benefits for the people of Florida, to tie all 3 of those in. And during the time period that we spent with the entire group, both domestically preparing them while we were in Florida to an international experience, and then afterwards coming back and talking with them and sharing, and have them share their experience and have us share with us how we can make that process better. It gave us a complete circle, and we were able to strengthen our programs from there on. And we had then created 5 advocates for internationalizing extension and carried it on to another program that we did. We focused the first one on CAFTA, which is a Caribbean program, to a biofuels program in Brazil. All very expensive, all very intensive, but again, creating 10 now advocates of county commissioners that are local and can understand how to help extension do its job locally and abroad.
Thank you. Dr. Swanson?
Well, as Mark pointed out, I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer, and are there any returned volunteers in the audience in Extension? Oftentimes we're quite a few. It transforms your experiences for the very reasons that each of these guys have said. It changes your perception of the world that you live in. I was in Tunisia. I was not at all, this was in the early 70s, I was not at all surprised by the Arab Spring of this last year. It made a lot of sense. But that's not the view most Americans have of the Arab world. It also created an understanding in me between outreach and engagement, and I think this is an important one. Outreach begins with an answer, engagement ends with one, and you hope what you reach out with is the product of engagement and research and an understanding of what's going on, and that's part of what we're doing at CSU. In terms of the broader experience of the land grant system, the places that I've been recently have spent 8 trips to Russia, counts this a few times. The Russians are very interested in the land grant system. Several of them who study higher education within and are focused on higher education within the very highly centralized Russian system felt they had an opportunity in the late 20s and lost it by the time Stalin came in. And they want to recreate it. They understand the importance of connecting people and their newly found interest in markets and in local civil society like farm organizations, youth organizations that, unlike 4-H, had a different purpose in terms of a government program. I think there's an awful lot that we can learn from others in what we do, and these, myth busting is something that we do in Extension regularly. It's part of what we are focused on. Well, global experiences help our agents bust the myths not only in their own minds, but also those in their communities, and help educate their communities.
Thank you so much. Dr. Place, we're going to start with you this time. Third question is, what are the primary barriers to supporting professional engagement of your faculty or staff in global or international extension work?
Okay. So I think at the top of the list is funding, money, and all those kind of things. We just need to get that out. But let me go beyond that. Maybe these guys will talk more about that. I think one of the other perceptions out there, or problems or issues, whatever you want to call it, or opportunity maybe, is the public perception of international work. I know in all of the institutions I've worked with, that's been one of the things that has come back to me, is why are we investing public dollars or extension dollars to send somebody to another country or working on international kinds of things. I heard it a lot in Maryland from some of our commodity groups. And that is kind of the perception or reality that a lot of our people have. We, I think, have an obligation to help them understand that we are in a global society today, and frankly, the United States does not have all of the answers. And there's a lot that we can learn from other countries and other people, and that's one of the things I've appreciated about the international work that I've been involved with. I know in Florida, we've done some work with taking producers to Brazil to learn about the citrus industry. One of the biggest issues we deal with down there is citrus greening. So we've had a chance to go to Brazil to see how they deal with some of those kinds of issues. Even though they are a competitor, so to speak, there is some things that we can learn from them. I guess how I would respond to that is that we need to be thinking about our international work from a mutual benefit. What is going to bring mutual benefit to us as well as the partnering countries or faculty that we are working with? How can this be an overall benefit to us, to that country, and particularly, I always emphasize how can our clientele that we are directly responsible for, what kind of benefit are they going to get out of this? So I really focus on the mutual benefit as I look at international work. Thank you.
Forgot?
Well, Nick said about 90% of it, I'm sure. My first thing I wrote down on here was going on vacation. That's the perception. People think that all the advertisements say you're going to take a cruise, and you're going to see these different countries, you're going to take a plane. So when you say you're going to go to another country, you're going to spend hard dollars to go on vacation. And that perception is huge. The other one is, and Nick mentioned funding, but the big one is time. It does take tremendous amounts of time and extra effort. It's to not only become trained, but also to understand. And when you your feet do hit the ground, you realize that you didn't prepare enough. There's no way you can solve all the problems that you're seeing or facing. And what am I going to do now? What have I gotten myself into? The other piece, we have a lot of internal issues because there's a lot of jealousy when people go away from their county or their job. And other people have to maybe fill in while that individual's gone. And then we have a mindset amongst some administrative people in administration that really don't see the value at all of doing things beyond what we're currently doing. And it really takes a huge amount of time and energy to convince and to get funding sources released. And it happens all the way up through every dollar that we get from all different kinds of sources. Most of our administrators would never think twice about funding all of our traditional programs. Why aren't we allotting dollars for internationalizing extension? I mean, it's once people understand the importance and the issues, it's a matter of funding those types of training programs, those types of experiences, especially professional development for our faculty, to understand all that they need to know to do their jobs locally. The last one I'll leave with is we just don't have many states involved, or many even in states that do have training programs, and that's set aside separate professional training for our faculty, because you can't just go and expect to do what's required. You've got to practice, you've got to develop, you've got to understand what the person's getting into, otherwise they're going to fail. We don't need them to fail, especially when they're halfway around the globe.
Thank you so much. Dr. Swanson?
You can call me Lou.
It's going to be away from home so
Well, I think we all understand what the funding barriers are, but I'd like to focus on the problem of rewards. You've begun to talk about it, but we don't reward agents for going. I can tell you, that in Colorado, one of the big concerns of our agents was that they were being penalized for looking international. And I want to make it really clear that that is just the opposite of where we are now. It's 180 degree. But it was an issue of you had to sign all kinds of contracts, agreeing to return. Mark probably remembers someone in Huerfano County who didn't. And part of it was because he didn't feel like he wanted to come back. But we've got to work into the reward structure for our agents in the field and specialists on campus the importance of advancement by doing international work. It shouldn't just be because you really need to get it to be a full professor, and all of us here are full professors. But we need to be focused on rewarding our agents to get there and help our local folks understand that this isn't a trip, a joyride to some exotic place that they would like to go and want to know why public taxpayers are paying for this adventure in a foreign country. We have a lot of education to do, and we do work against talk radio in Colorado, especially on the Eastern Plains. But we need to find ways to systematically reward our agents and to support them and encourage them to find overseas experience.
Thank you. Dr. Ward, anything to add? I mean, there's a lot that's been filled in there.
There's only so many ways you can talk about funding and time, but let me try. Our South Africa experience was started 30 years ago, and we sort of lost it. And so we're in the process in the last few years of reestablishing that. And we're doing it with the understanding that outstanding programs will find dollars to get them done. But one of the things we've learned in doing that is that with just a little money and the application of technology, we can do a lot of international work, pretty inexpensive. Where you use webinars, where you use Skype, and those kinds of technologies. Even if you're going out to the country, using that in a blended way is very powerful. And we've been able to do that and accomplish some really good things and keep the relationship going using technology between visits. The other problem or barrier that I see that has to do with time and spending time and quality time is trying to figure out a way to institutionalize global programs. Something happened with our extension program in South Africa that was started 30 years ago. And I suspect that it had to do with different directors and different faculty and different priorities. But I think we really need to spend some time as we get into those discussions and development of programs to figure out how we can institutionalize them so that they can continue in case one person leaves. The other one really gets back to spending time preaching rather than engaging, and we've already kind of covered that. But when we're there, I think we really have to spend our time building the relationship, otherwise we're wasting our time, and it's a barrier. And then finally, making time, and many have talked about it, making time for this as a professional development activity. Seems like extension people have a little trouble with these kinds of new experiences that are a little bit reaching, just a little bit beyond the norm, and just like scholarship many times is. Those two things, I think, for us are really things we really ought to focus on. And really they're connected in terms of how we spend it.
Thank you. Dr. Berghoff, we're going to do the last question starting with you, and that question is, to what extent do you think or believe that the future of extension is relying on the further expansion of our agents in the relationship of seeing the rest of the world or interacting with the rest of the world? Or do you believe that our focus should be more internalized toward the U.S. and local issues, and why?
My first answer is this a trick question? After we spend the last 4 minutes or so, my answer is yes, and because we've got, in a very short period of time, we're going to feed 9 billion people, and we can't do that alone. Education is the only way we're going to solve that huge issue. I was in China at one time near the Great Wall, right next to Colonel Sanders' Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I asked a policeman why they don't carry guns in China. And he said, well, we have a problem. We have 1/4 of all the people in the world, and we don't have enough bullets. So, it really starts you to think for a while. I mean, they have 80% of their people at that time were still involved in agriculture. And I also met with folks from Kellogg Corporation, and when we asked them why they were there, they said, well, you know, not everyone in China yet eats cornflakes. And so, you know, there's all different reasons we do things, and people have their reasons. Our extension faculty need the capacity of understanding international issues. They need to understand many of the things that we do, everything that we do, every international issue is a local issue. We wake up in the morning and in the news and the markets, and how the market in Greece affects the market in New York, and the job market in the U.S. We can't just stick our head in the sand and build a big fence around the United States and say that everything's fine and dandy. We can use the technology that we currently have to start to expand. On the way over here, I got a phone call from a farmer that I had spent the evening with his family in one of our training programs. He called me on a cell phone that he didn't have 15 years ago. And now he has the capacity to reach out to the entire world. And he doesn't have a vehicle. He doesn't drive anywhere, but he's up in the mountains in Costa Rica and operating and communicating with the rest of the world. And we have to have our faculty be able to do that and be able to communicate with other folks in other countries.
Dr. Swanson?
Well, I mean, extension in most places in the United States are celebrating our 100th anniversary at CSU. We're celebrating our 100th in November. We have 5 different counties. It started off local, and we want to continue. The future of extension is local. It's local programs for local engagement. So the localization of globalization will continue to be an issue. So trying to hit an area that these guys may not touch on, I think extension is absent at international conferences. There's one coming up in Moscow. It occurs every 2 years. It's called Discusssion, which is the Global Confederation of Higher Education Associations for Agricultural and Life Sciences. Extension, I've been to the conference several times. It's every 2 years. Extension's not there. The deans show up. Experiment station directors, by the way, my career has been in the experiment station as opposed to an extension at the University of Kentucky, and even though it's in liberal arts, working with Extension Experiment Station at CSU. They're there. Extension needs to become itself more active in these larger conversations. The conference this year is going to be looking at the climate change, globalization, and sustainability. This is a huge issue around the world, and there will be over 300-400 delegates around the world. They'll pontificate on all the needs we have. The issue is, so what? What are you going to do when you go home? And that go home issue is extension. And extension needs to begin to work with our colleagues around the globe. And we've heard in many places that we work currently from South Africa, China, Russia, and other places. But we need to make sure your extension administrators and are showing up at these important places to show that the importance of engagement and extension, and that it's not just research that counts.
Thank you.
I can't agree more. I think it was mentioned in my introduction that I had a chance to give a paper on our Mexico project in Colima. This was at the APLU-ICA meeting, a group of where the U.S. and European colleges of agriculture get together. I think I was the only extension paper there, and I think probably I've been the only extension paper they've ever had. So I think that's really true. We really have to do the scholarship. Future's bright, I think, as long as globalization is not going to slow down, it's going to increase. And the market, as several have mentioned, the market for land grant ways and extensions scholarship and teaching is growing in demand. I think everybody wants to, a lot of people in developing countries and maybe more developed countries want to emulate us in what we do. So I think the market's there. And we've got the hook. We've got the research-based information. We've got the localness of our programs. And we understand how that works. And that's that ability to connect, as someone said, is very, very important. I think we have to provide institutional balance, and that is you got to make the case for what you're going to do domestically because you're doing it internationally. And one of the more universal ones that I know about is the number of states that are doing a better job serving Latino and Hispanics because of all of the different possible ways that they've worked internationally in those kinds of countries. It's huge. So I see it growing. I see the scholarship for international programming growing, and I want to just mention to you, if you haven't heard, there's a new e-extension community of practice being developed on international community practice on international extension. Renee Pardello, University of Minnesota, is the leader of that community of practice. And I think that's another good sign that there's a great future.
Thank you. Dr. Place?
Okay, I guess I get the last word, right?
Well, tell me a little bit more about it.
So let me just say amen to what these guys have mentioned. One of the things that Lou made me think of last year at the National Ag Summit, one of the keynote speakers was Bill Clinton. And in his talk, if you have the opportunity to see that, he was talking about the need for a worldwide extension system. And that comes back to what these guys are talking about. I think now USAID and these other big organizations are recognizing, okay, we're doing a good job with fairly good job with research and other things, but we really need to find ways to develop strong extension systems to work with farmers and farm women and all of those kind of things to really develop our food system. I was going to talk about the food system and global education and all of those kind of things, and these guys hit on that. The one thing I do want to kind of drill down on is that of utilizing global involvement, international education as a way for better understanding diverse peoples. And I think we don't want to lose sight of that because the people that I've worked with, I know myself, and people I've worked with, once you do some of these kind of things, especially immersion kind of programs, you really have a true international experience, you do come back with a different appreciation for working with diverse peoples and cultures. And I think we really need to take that seriously as an extension organization in making sure that the work that we do is really cross-representative and reaching the broad base of people that we have in each of our states. And I think international involvement, engagement, global education, whatever you want to call it, is a great opportunity to do that. The one last thing I would mention, this frankly goes back to the other question in regards to some of the barriers and issues, and that is what career stage should people get involved in this? And is it early in career, mid-career, late career? And that's an issue that we've dealt with in Maryland and in Florida. And too often, I think we see people at the tail end of their careers, now they get involved in international, which is fine and dandy. However, we really miss a lot of what they could bring back to our extension organization. So my emphasis has been more on the between the early to mid-career, and I really want to see those folks get involved in international kinds of things because it's an opportunity for them to really grow professionally and personally and bring a lot more back to our organization. And so there's a lot of issues with that, but I wanted to make sure that we got that out on the table.
Right, I appreciate it. Thank you all for all your time and insight, wisdoms, and from your experiences that you brought forth here. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions we might have for anybody. Class. There we go.
I have one. So obviously, you're all great advocates of having an international experience and the value of that to not only your local program, but to your organization as well. So how do we spread this enthusiasm? How can you as administrators, or do you work with other administrators and tell this story? Or have you never been asked to do that?
I'm told not to do it.
Anyway.
Well, if we talk about spread it through across the organization, our own organization, one of the things that we've done is we've just recently instituted a non-tenure track promotion system. And that kind of that kind of work is acknowledged in that as extension work. And the scholarship, and I'll go back to that, the scholarship in that area is highly regarded in that NTT process. You know, I think we do sometimes talk about the international experiences in the North Central region of directors, but not a lot, because we get so focused on the local stuff, on the stuff that's driving the states. We probably need to spend a little more time doing that. But I think there are things happening, like this community of practice, for example, that will change that over time.
One thing I would say in relation to that, a few years ago there was a study done by, it's a subcommittee of ECOP that sent a survey out to extension directors and administrators about their belief in and involvement with international kinds of things. And I think it came back, if I remember or recall correctly, it came back there was a fair level of support to it. However, there was a lot of barriers that administrators and directors saw that was really tough to deal with. You know, the funding issue, the time issue, the perception of clientele issue. So there's those kind of things I think we collectively can be working on and helping our directors or administrators understanding how to deal with some of these kinds of things. And then, like Mike said, in regards to the funding, there's different ways that we can go about doing that today. Today we have great technology. He talked about, he got a call from a farmer in Costa Rica on a cell phone. And there's Skype, and there's lots of other ways that we can utilize technology to help us address that real particular barrier of funding. In regards to our clientele, I think we all have a responsibility to help our clientele understand about the global connectedness that we have today, and Extension can really help our clientele understand that what we do here locally does have a global impact, or what happens in China is going to come back and have an effect on us. The more educated our faculty are, the better, higher quality job they're going to be able to do with our clientele. And I think we all collectively have a job to do to make sure that happens.
I think that's a great question to ask this group. I actually missed the NIDA meeting, which is the National Extension Directors Association, because I was in Marseille at an international water conference. So I don't know if NIDA has ever had this discussion. I can speak for WEDA, which is the Western Extension Directors Association. I don't think we've ever discussed it. So what you're saying is we're so focused the last 5 years on just surviving. And I mean, frankly, Extension's going to go through a renaissance. We should be 50 experiments. What we're doing in Colorado shouldn't be replicated in Utah. And Chuck would be the first one to say that. But I think maybe what the judges here at the table can do is maybe raise this to the NIDA and into our WEDA and the other groups, because all of us have an interest in this. And frankly, we're the ones who can change the way in which the perception of people doing international work is seen by the culture of extension in our states. So maybe, we don't have a clout at this table, but maybe we can get it on, we'll get NIDA next year. The NIDA conference, maybe that's one of the places that maybe as we break out of the recession, we begin to look more extensively.
And individually, I'd challenge and invite you all to next May 19th through the 22nd. Write down AIAEE.org, Association of International Ag and Extension Educators. They have there is a group that's been in existence over 27 years. They welcome your scholarship, abstracts or posters, and there's members from about 30-some countries around the globe. This year happens to be Fort Worth, Texas as a location, so it's not too international for you to get to. And last year it was Thailand, the year before that Namibia. So there are a lot of international locations that it's an annual conference, and it's a good way to share scholarship. They have a journal, and so taking the time for individuals to share your scholarship. And when you think about it, it's any type of extension work needs to be shared. Because if I'm an extension agent in Thailand, I want to read about extension work in the U.S. And so you don't, it doesn't have to be a project where you did something in another country. So please take that time to look that website up.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions? No one here?
You've all talked about a lot of wonderful experiences and partnerships that you have had. And Michael, you touched on this when you talk about institutionalizing this kind of thing, the need for institutionalizing. You know, how do we institutionalize this? Because you can't have a group that's very involved, and then when that person retires, then that whole international effort might go away. So how do you go about institutionalizing these global partnerships and experiences?
I would say continuous professional development in the area of internationalizing extension. If we're not training our faculty during the time they're with us as an extension agent, as Nick said, my philosophy was to use that professional development as a reward for doing good work, as a mid-career professional. You know, they've struggled through their first few years, they kind of understand what their job is. Now, how can they stretch them a little bit farther? And that's what I see the biggest benefit. So we got to continuously work on what the benefits are for this activity. It's like any other thing. If there wasn't a benefit for the other types of things we do, you know, it kind of goes away.
I think another direct way to address that really is to ensure that international work is valued and recognized in promotion and tenure or performance appraisal that you do at each of your institutions. And you know, so that starts with talking with directors, administrators, or faculty assembly, or whatever it is at your particular institution, to ensure that there is a section there within P&T or performance appraisal that really emphasizes and recognizes international work. So that's a way to the institution.
You know, I think we have to form networks of faculty that are going to work in the project, and the better ones are the ones that are interdisciplinary in nature. Because I think if you've got a network of folks working a project, then one person leaving is not going to cause the thing to collapse. And so that's right. You know, really, that's where we're at with the South Africa project. We've got to get now the faculty really to buy into it, and we got to do it in an interdisciplinary way. And I think if we do that, it'll hang on. It'll persist.
So I'm going to talk like a sociologist. The structure can only occur if you change the culture. And changing culture is much harder. Ken Martin and I were in Penn State together, so maybe Ken can talk to you a little bit more about what the importance of culture and agency are. It's not just changing the structure of an organization to make it sustainable. If you think about what's made extension sustainable for 100 years, the culture has been service at the local level. And I think connecting that service to the global changes and bringing home those experiences is a way of first connecting so that our constituents buy into it. But on campus, I actually think that the campus already buys into that, so maybe it's somewhere in the mid-level among extension practitioners themselves, so that one group doesn't look at another as being favored. But I think changing the culture takes longer to do, and maybe more recognition on our parts to do that. By the way, 4-H does this all the time, and usually in Colorado. I mean, we have a lot of, we take very pride in the folks who we send overseas and get their training and come back, and we celebrate those experiences every year. So I think 4-H has figured it out. Maybe the rest of us need to figure it out.
I'd love to ask questions more. We're wrapping up. We're coming close to that 3 o'clock time frame here.
I want to thank Mark. This happened to him on Friday, so I'd like to thank
All
Mark
good.
for taking care of this.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I would encourage those of you who still have questions to ask to corner these gentlemen in your own time between meetings and between in the evening here time frame if they're still here. And please ask them the questions more specifically. And maybe obviously it sounds like there's a lot of continuing conversation to be had with this. At this time, there's a couple of other things I want to let you know about with the Global Relations Committee here. We do have a Global Relations Committee and Marketing Committee's meeting coming up tomorrow, where we're going to actually be videotaping some of those extension professionals who have actually gone overseas for extension work, and so we invite you to be part of that. That's tomorrow between 3:30 and 4 o'clock. And then on Wednesday from
time.
That's right, okay. So there's a Latino Advisory Council's meeting, which is the Latino Programming Needs and Extension. It says here it's actually 3:30 to 4 o'clock. That's after this whole thing wraps up, so maybe that's the wrong time on that day? Okay, so same time you're saying? All right, so just be aware of those. You'll see these are kind of laying all around the administration tables out here, and then there's, you know, placed around the community here, so if you want to look at that, just kind of get an idea of what's going on with those. Also here, while you're waiting for me, if you would please make sure again to fill out your evaluations here. Obviously, in Extension, we're all about evaluation. And write your name down on the bottom here off the corner, whatever it may be. We'll do a drawing for this here yet. And for each of you, this is not from me, but from Mary actually, that she has these stars from Women in West Cape, South Africa Township that they hand make. And she was wanting me to give to each of you for agreeing to be a panelist here. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are stars. So,
Well, thanks, Dan.
Let's give the panel a round of applause. We